Hello, hello, hello. Once again, it is the unscripted show with TD, but today we have some special guests. And we say always that this is the show where everything goes as the spirit flows. So once again, we're happy to have with us today the incredible duo, the power couple in every sense of the word, and the presence of Folu and Eddy Adebote.
Hi
Hi, Tosin.
everyone. Hi Daisy. Hi Derry.
Thanks for having us.
We're happy to have
Yeah,
you on.
so we're so happy to have you. Folu is a health practitioner. She's a project manager. Eddie is a techie, and I like the rhyme. Eddie the techie. He is a digital program manager, and they are senior pastors here in Woodstock, Ontario, Canada, and they are certified marriage counselors. Guess what? They've been married for 17 years and they are still in love. At least they're still married. They are staying married. And today they want to talk to us about marriage. And just before we begin to hear from them, I have with me also my beautiful African queen and the person of daring. Yes,
Drum
Darian Eddy.
rolls, drum rolls, drum rolls.
So yeah,
Um,
Eddie
Amazing.
and Folu, do you want to tell us a bit about yourselves while Jerry will take it over from there?
Thank you, Tosi. Thank you for having us on the show. It's really an honor to be here. Myself and Eddie, we have been, like you said, married for 17 years, and God has been helping us, right? We currently live in Woodstock, Ontario, and yes, we're doing ministry together also. The funny thing is, we've kind of worked together in the past. We worked in the same office, and that's how we met. And we kind of have been in the same industry until recently when I pivoted to healthcare. So, yes, that's our journey, and happy to connect with you both.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Before Derek takes it away, I like the romance in the office, if that's safe to say, right?
Well,
Over to you, Derek.
you can call it that. It's not. It wasn't a financial institution, back home. You
So there
even if
was no restrictions.
there's no
No
restriction, and
restrictions,
There was
yeah.
no restrictions.
Yeah,
yeah,
Amazing.
there was no ethical conflicts. Yeah.
no, there was no restriction, and it was approved.
I like the sound of there was no restrictions, so you could go all the way. Amazing. It's the topic we're discussing today is very, very important, not just to those of us who are married, but to those who will be coming on board the marital journey very soon, especially for those who will be relocated. I know that marriages are being attacked, right, left, and center, and all over the world. We can't just focus, what particularly our focus is about those couples that moved from a certain location and they came probably here or other places abroad. And to back up, we've been noticing that a lot of people are having issues, couples are having issues. And to back up that drive or the reason for this talk today, we found out that research, there have been researches and all from the American Psychological Association. They said major life changes like relocation can actually rank the highest amongst those the list of stressful events for couples, meaning that relocation contributes the most to the issues the couples are having right now in our world and currently. And then studies from the Journal of Family Psychology suggest that couples who relocate are at a 40% higher risk of divorce compared to those who stay in one place due to the strains of adjusting to new routines, social isolations, and cultural differences. I know that you have a whole lot. Just to create a premise, just to like start off our conversation today. Could you please just tell us a little bit about what you think the challenges of couples in our time, especially those that are relocated?
Yeah, I think you're spot on with those statistics as well, and it might have been exacerbated by even much higher by things like COVID time as well, where
Mm,
we saw globally that people could not cope with spouses because maybe the spouses was always going to work. Now they have to be in the same home. You have to take care of the child. You cannot go out. You are stuck together, and those kind of factors were things that were not scripted. They just happened, and people had
mm,
to adapt as well. So, but if you take it on based on the question that you've talked about as well, unfortunately, we've had friends that have come here and things were working back home. They got here a few months down the line. They called us and say, "Hey, we can't do this together." We tried to mitigate, and it wouldn't work. Right? It wouldn't work because they got to that point where they didn't reach out as early as they should
mm,
to be counseled. For somebody to say, "Hey, let's pause and listen," active listening, not listen to give a feedback, but listen to what is going on and see what mitigations you can profile to help the couples get back on track. But truth be told, relocation has its own toll on people moving. The reason is because when you're moving from a culture that you are comfortable, perhaps you're working 9 to 5, you have helps that you can employ.
mhm.
Even what you have drivers, you have a gate man, for example.
Yeah.
You understood that maybe when you go home, the kind of cycle that you work with fitted into a narrative where probably food is at home, maybe you're looking from a man, or you don't want to get into kitchen because the kitchen is secluded. I usually tell people jokingly, right, that do you know in the North American context, do you know why the sitting room and the kitchen is all blended together? There's no partition as it were. For that man, is because there's no restriction. It's everything is together. You have to play that role of being in the
Mm,
sitting room and being in the kitchen almost at the same time. But let's bring it up. Cultural differences, right? Where some people don't plan when they are coming over to these places. So they find out that, oh, so people get to work around the clock. Sometimes your shift or your job is entails you to work at night. You didn't practice that back home. So what happens is that if the woman gets the job, which is important, might be important for sustainability of the family, maybe two of them are
yeah.
looking for a job.
Mhm.
You are now faced with taking care of children that you are not. Maybe the man is not used to back home without any support here, right? Things like people coming around together and maybe they're trying to look for a job as it were, and the job is not coming, can bring a toll on family. If you also look at it, children are adapting to a lot of changes. For example, I also give for look at some time to also chime in. Children are adapting to changes in this environment. So sometimes you find that because they are adapting to cultural changes, the kind of ways that you or the dynamics in managing your kids at home, in managing that changing or very fluid kind of things, like when children are asking you, mommy, why? They are being taught to be curious, can be very challenging for some parents. They can't manage that kind of children speaking back to them. In Africa, sometimes you say children are supposed to be heard,
Supposed to be seen.
seen and not heard,
Yeah.
rather. But
Mhm.
here
Mhm.
they are part of the fabric as well. So that can also be a huge challenge to folks. So that you want
So
to add
I
to
will
something?
say that in summary of what he said,
Mhm,
when you relocate,
Mhm.
the roles change.
mhm,
They will definitely change. And what creates the rules to start with is culture. So
mhm,
from back home, Nigeria, you have this culture where the man understands his box, the woman understands her box. But when you come out of here, number one, a lot of factors are playing at the same time. You're trying to get a job, trying to get a house, trying to settle down. You don't know anything anywhere. You depend on people for information. Everyone is trying to evolve. Now you come into a culture where the woman is a little bit more empowered than they used to be back home. Now, the man has to deal with the impact of that on their relationship, right? Can he deal with it? Can he not? It depends on the man, actually. Now, some people are actually now coming back from Nigeria and they already have cracks in their relationship that has not been mended. I will say, before you relocate, whatever cracks you have, fix it, please. Because the pressure you'll meet when you relocate will help you open those cracks up and fill it up with all manner of junks. Because I have seen a couple who relocated here. They had 3 kids, and the wife was crying that she's not going to stay here because her husband doesn't help her. The husband wants her to stay. She cannot stay because she doesn't have a maid. She doesn't have a cleaner. She doesn't have a cook anymore. She has to do everything. Her husband doesn't help. So what makes her stay? Nothing, because she's just going to be overwhelmed. So how are we flexible enough to say roles will change, situation, circumstances will change. You probably even don't have a job anymore. You're trying to look for one. You're trying to adapt to a new system, taking a lot of information. So it's a lot of pressure to deal with. So sometimes my counsel will be that before you leave Nigeria, please, if you do have holes in your relationship, for example, the man has cheated on the woman, she doesn't even trust him. So they come here, and then he's having to work with a female colleague. She's not going to trust that. And the female colleague is all acting like she knows everything and she has more information than the wife. That will put pressure on all of that. She's going to be extra suspicious, right? So if you do have a crack in your relationship before you come out of Nigeria, spend time, spend resources and everything to ensure that you fix the cracks, because you're coming here into a new, different culture. Everything is different. There's going to be pressure. Your marriage has to be able to withstand that. That's what I will tell you for a fact.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Eddy and Folu. You've said a whole lot. You've said a whole lot. I just want to, circle back to some points that you touched on. You talked about a friend of yours who relocated, who did not get, contact help early. So there's also timing with help that we can get when we need to fix. Wow, I got that. Timely help. When you notice there's a problem, seek help, right? And seek help on time. And then, you mentioned cultural shock being, part of the issues that, couples encounter when they move here. And the one that I also love the most, one of the several things you said role switch. We need to mentally prepare for role switch, right? We may get there and my wife gets a job earlier than I do. I should be ready to support how my wife would support if she were to be home, right? And if it's the man also, I should prepare my mind as the woman, to support. So did you say something?
Sorry to cut in. Yeah, sorry to cut in. Explain the support. It means taking out trash. Because support for most African men is just to drop money.
No. But they mentioned it. They talked about the role switch, right? As the woman, right? Woman is expected to.
Let's spell it out. It means cleaning diapers, taking out trash, doing dishes,
cooking the meals, not just that, cooking the food.
I could chime in.
Feeding the kids.
Yes.
Right.
Babysitting.
Yes. I think we're, we've gotten those definitions. We've gotten them correctly, right? You see, back home, predominantly, you find out that the man is the breadwinner, and that gives a level of I'm in charge. Now he relocates and is no longer in charge. And what happens most of the time is now
in a way.
Well, role has changed.
Yeah, I think his interpretation of what's being in charge means.
Okay, so when I talk about being in charge, I'm talking from I'm using the word loosely, in sense
Yeah.
that, okay, when it comes to money, maybe, okay, I'm pay you're
Mm-hmm.
making money available
Mm-hmm.
for school fees, for feeding and all that. And we also have this back home we have this mindset that says the man's money is our money and the wife's
Aha.
money
Mhm.
is
Aha.
the wife's money. That kind of feedback.
Preach
But you
it.
come to this point where you are paying bills. You're not paying your rent in back home we pay annually. Now you're paying monthly.
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 The amount you're paying monthly can be 3 times the amount you used to pay back home annually. You
True.
have bills to pay for your hydro, which is your power,
Mhm.
your
Your
water.
water.
You have your telephone bills, for example. You
Mm-hmm.
have your grocery bills, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You have
Internet.
if you have a mortgage, you have your municipality bills. You have your mortgage bills,
Your insurance.
your insurance. Everything is billed, so to say. Now, the man is trying to get a work. They don't have enough savings to last, and the woman gets a job, for example, and then she
Mhm.
has to be the one putting the money down. If the marriage does not have the maturity to
Mm.
understand that now you have come to a place whereby the roles have to now be flexible. If the woman says you are still the one that needs to bring out the money, friction starts. It's a given. So that emotional intelligence to understand that we're no longer in a place where we're bounded by certain culture. Where if you're in Rome, you do like the Romans, and if you fail to do like the Romans, then there will be problem.
And that's why I like what the Bible says. The Bible goes beyond putting people in boxes of
Mhm,
culture to say a man must do this, a man must cut only grass and wash only car. Bible
Mhm.
says love and submission. And if you read a scripture that talks about love and submission and you go down a little bit, you see that the Bible talks about loving one another and submitting to one another. So that role is intouchable. If you
Mm.
take that and apply it to any situation you meet yourself, it
mhm.
means that if my husband was paying my bills in Nigeria and he got me a car, he got me a driver, he got me nannies and all of that, I live large and I'm a woman that is well kept. I may want to flaunt it to my friends now that my husband takes care of me. In Nigeria, it's a thing, right? Here, this part of the world, not so much. You start to look really dumb, like a kept dummy, if you start to flaunt that, oh, my husband pays my bills. Here, you come to the table. So even for the woman, it changes. Now, when you are in a place where you have to come to the table, some people are not able to adjust to that. We have seen that, where the woman would complain about it just because she's now chipping in money to support the family.
Mhm.
So, if we go back a little bit to scripture and we're able to say, what does scripture say? It's not who is doing what, it's about love. Do we love our family? Do we love one another? Do we step out? That way, you're able to see that, look, it's not about what I'm doing, it's about that this family must succeed.
Mhm.
And what sacrifice do I need to make to ensure that it succeeds? That takes away the garment of culture. It takes away a man who all of a sudden he's seeing himself cook now feeling a little bit less than a man because he's cooking watery beans anyways. So what I'm trying to say here is what's most important is love. If we don't step out of our belief system
Mhm.
and stand on the pedestal of love, then we will have a problem. And that's
True.
the way forward.
Mm.
Thank you very
Amazing.
much.
Tosi, before I leave the floor to you, I was actually mentioning some of the things that I took away from the discussion. You said
Mhm.
something about cracks in relationship. So if you have noticed some cracks in the relationship before you relocate, and I like the way you put it. Said the cracks when you get here, the culture will fill it in with all sorts, and it will make your relationship look like nothing you ever identified. It will look so strange to you, and it will look so different from where you started. So if you notice some cracks, fix it. So I'm going to join it with seeking help early, that you said. So if I have noticed some cracks in my relationship, even though we want to travel, we're so excited about traveling. We should be more excited about fixing those cracks early before we come here?
That's right.
Do you
Right.
want to shed a little bit of more light on that?
So we've seen and cracks could be sometimes we just assume cracks is when your marriage has a problem. It's not. We've seen a situation. I said earlier that oh, the wife is a kept woman in Nigeria, then she comes here and starts to struggle. That's some level of crack because now she has to come to the table, right? And she
Mhm.
definitely resents that option. Now, so sitting on the table, coming to say, look, I take care of you, I take care of our kids, I take care of all the bills in Nigeria. However, when we travel, if things do change, what do we do? That way, sometimes having a conversation about these things allows us to be mentally prepared for any change that might come. So, if I have a question like, what do you do if you have to pay bills? And I have already committed to say, of course, I'll come to the table. When we travel, it makes it easier when you now eventually have to come today. But when those things are smiling at you and you're trying to see bills, dollar bills dropping, you are like, I agreed to this anyways. So that way it makes it better. Sometimes cracks could be the marriage is already faulty. Your in-laws they have a seat on the table of your marriage. They are the ones that dictate what must happen. You now travel. I've seen situations where the mother-in-law still calls and tells the wife what to cook for the son. And here you are all out of the country. You're wondering, why are you still picking up the phone? Why is she telling me she doesn't even know what is going on here? She has no idea how things are. And you're still calling your son and say, this is what must be. That's another kind of crack that we'll need to deal with. Talking about cheating also, someone may have cheated on their spouse, in the past and repented. One of the things that I realized in during marriage counseling is, first of all, when you get married to someone, the trust you give your spouse is trust in advance, is credit.
Yeah.
Is you give the person on credit. I give you all my complete trust because I love you. After you start walking through your marriage, you start
That's
to
true.
erode that credit until it becomes debit, right? So a man who is continually cheated first time, second time, that person's ability to trust you is now eroded. Let's assume that you are genuinely sorry now. You've repented and everything looks good and dandy. You will never do it again. It takes the woman a while
Mhm.
to get to a point where she has forgiven you, but it takes a while for her to forget. And so, for each time she sees you looking very strangely or talking very weirdly with someone,
Mhm.
it's still the first thing that drops in her mind is it cheating again? Now she has
Trigger.
to deal with that
Mhm.
to say, look, I am suspicious. Maybe he's not cheating, maybe he is. At this point, we don't know and we don't care. However, how long does it take me for me to remove that box from my mind to say, okay, my husband has repented, is now entirely sorry. Now, while I'm still dealing with that, then you cheat again. At some point, you get to the point where she might even decide, look, I'm never going to trust this man again. In that situation, you not travel out of the country, and then one Oyibo shorty is smiling at him weirdly. Is that not going to be a potential problem? So that's what I'm saying, that you have that kind of crack, you refuse to fix it. It's a big problem. It's going to be a big problem, no matter how innocent you may be.
Mhm.
It will always come up and grow bigger, and there's no here you can't easily just go to your pastor and say advise us, or you go to one big auntie around the corner that will sit the two of you down.
Mhm.
It's not going to be, you don't have, most likely will not have that support until maybe you've stayed here for a certain
Mhm.
number of years and you've really settled down. So
Yeah.
what happens when things keep coming up at that point?
Yeah.
We've seen couples eventually now start putting cameras to monitor their partner just because the trust was not there before they left
Mhm.
home,
Mhm.
right? And so now something happened, they're all triggered, they're watching one another in cameras. It's crazy.
Yeah. And to add to that as well, Bible says, "Can two walk together except they be agreed?" So if you look at it from that perspective, right, when you have families that do not have a framework for them to be able to manage crisis, because in managing crisis, you must have that framework. And the framework has to do with, for example, are people able to come to the table and listen to each other? Are people supposed to have that mind of Christ where you can forgive and you can forget? Are you able to have conversations and you're open to advise each other? For example, you're seeing situations where couple are not able to have children or time, and one person is blaming the other. Instead of them coming to the table and say, what can we do? Do we need to seek medical advice? Do we need to take time off work and see whether we can plan vacation and go on and have our honeymoon again and spark things up, right? If people don't have that kind of maturity, it becomes a challenge. So when you come to this part of the world, it might be in terms of bringing up children. In in the part of the world that we find ourselves here, North America, people are a bit very more individualistic. Back when we are a bit communal, right? Families together. When I get married, I'm married to a larger family as well. But sometimes, friends want to meet, talking about, cultures around here. They meet at Tim Hortons, right? They don't go to each other's house all the time. You want people to come. You want to make the egusi, you want to make the pounded yam, the jollof rice, and all that. And families want to come around to yourself. Now, when that happens, it means that when people have issues, right, you can't go just your neighbor doesn't have that understanding. Like something is happening, somebody hears a loud voice, people are arguing. Somebody will come and knock your house. Mama Jide, is there anything wrong? And all that. People are into each other's business. But here, it's about my property. Get off my property. You understand what I'm talking about? So when those kind of frameworks are now becoming esoteric, they are different from what you're used to. People get lonely here, right? I've seen couples that they kept malice together, and the house was as strange as the neighbors not talking to them. So they were isolated. They were, those kind of things. Because sometimes those kind of things happen back home whereby people get snobbish within the same house. I mean, why would I get snobbish? She's my best friend. If I wrong her, she'll tell me, hey, you wrong me. And I say, oh, I'm sorry. And I give her a pen, that kind of a thing. And we move on. It's a
Is it that easy? Is it that easy to just say, "Oh, hey, I'm sorry," and we just move on? I'm gonna give no. I want to give. I want to,
Jerry,
yeah.
for these guys, they're high school lovers, so I think it's that easy for them.
No. Don't talk. Don't talk about it. We want them to tell us, right? Is it that easy? Some of us don't find it easy. I'm going to give an example of myself, for instance. When we got into, here, London, we came in. My husband came in with his PhD, and we had thought, oh, he was going to get a good job right away, and then we're going to just keep writing. But it didn't happen that way. He got a construction job that he had to go, dig the floor, so, and I think he got into that 2 weeks into our stay here. And I got a job about a couple of months later, and then COVID happened. So we had a lot of things we were battling. I was battling staying home with the kids 24/7, running a call center job, and at the same time doing a full-time course at the college, just trying to ensure that, oh, I got to have this Canadian experience. I got to have this, while we still pay the bills, and all. But as at that time, I just felt like I was overburdened. I had so much to carry. But at the same time, he wasn't seeing it. So I started reacting. I became irritable, because I was like, can't you just see? I wasn't ready to voice it out that, hey, because I know he was going through his own, moment too. But I wasn't talking. I was feeling bad that he wasn't noticing. He did not notice how I was feeling and all the pressure I was going through. And then it strained our relationship until one day, I think my parents called, and I just said, how are you? I just broke down crying.
Wow.
Kilo, what happened? I'm just tired. I'm tired. So could many, and then, he was surprised to see me react that way. Like you looked as if you had it all figured out. You were fine, right? You were carrying everything. You never talked about it. Could couples also be going through that? Imagine if I never had, such a relationship with my parents to actually voice, or people that could notice. I didn't even tell them. They just sensed that there was something. I said, are you all right? And I broke down crying. And that was it. what happened? And they were able to, and then from there we learned from that to actually deliberately look out for one another. Are
That's
you okay? Are
right.
you sure you're fine? But are there couples right now that are probably going through that? How do
Mhm.
you leave your own skin to actually care for the other? I know you mentioned love, but
Yeah,
really love matter.
I,
It's
I,
very serious.
let me chime in here, right? Bible says that no one knows the heart of a man except his own spirit, and no one knows the heart of the Father except the Holy Ghost. So when you are going through a lot, the man will not know what you're going through. There has to be that place of communication. There has to be that place of communication. There are times that you can help because a tree cord uh, it cannot be easily broken. That's what the Bible talks about, where it becomes you, your spouse, and God. That you have that connection like a triangle. That is where a man, a woman can go to God and say, Lord, help me find out what is wrong with the woman, my wife. I'll give an example. I was during COVID, I was working with an organization that was managing contracts for municipalities. And because of that, we became essential organization. So you have to go into the office in person. When every place was locked down, I'll be the one driving only on the road to get to work. And because of that pressure, my wife was working from home and all that. I think there was a bit of strain, like, oh, I'm under a lot of pressure. And then the world was just gloomy, right? And
COVID.
there was some tension. And my wife went on her knees and she was praying. And she wasn't talking to asking me specifically. And she was praying, God, help me let me understand what's going on in the mind of this man. And I was in the office, I was about to have lunch. I heard clearly, why are you treating your wife like this? I was like, I turned. Is there somebody in the room with me? Because, I was only in my office in Oakville then. And immediately when I got home, I said, are you reporting me to God? What's going on? And she said, look, I've been praying for God to help me. And immediately I realized that, wow, that truly God rules in the affairs of men. That there's that part of that divine orchestration. But what has happened is that God has given us that opportunity for us to have communication. When communication breaks down, what has happened is that you have created a gulf between yourself and your spouse. Have you thought about it? That when two people are arguing, what happens to their voices?
It goes up.
Why do you think the voices goes up? Why do you think it goes up? It's
That's a
distant.
gap.
Yes. When you are
Emotional.
when you are far off and I need to call you, I start screaming your name, but the person is in your front. Why do you think you are shouting? Because there's a distance.
Emotionally.
There's a distance, yes. Not physically, like you said, emotionally, and then you need to speak twice as much to be able to cover that gap. So I want to say this to couples. If there's any couple hearing me, if you guys don't have a way of finding a safe space to have conversation, and it has to be active listening. Active listening is when someone says something to you, you listen and then you reconfirm if this is what the person means, and then you wait and ask to also give a feedback. Not that you want to interject, but you want to get the meat of that conversation. So having that is also important. And I think during you mentioned that there were things you bottled up that you thought, and then maybe it's also emotional intelligence on your part. He's going through a lot as well. You see, that safe place is where two people come together and say, we know we are carrying burden. Can we put this burden together and see whether we can find a solution? And if we cannot find a solution, the Bible says, come to me, all you who labor and are overburdened, and I will give you rest. That's where two people can hold their hands together. And it says, that when two agrees to touching a thing, it will be established. So we have these things that God has orchestrated that can make things work for us. But once we start carrying that burden alone, I think it's is a context of pride that we can do things on our own self.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there's
Wow.
something you said earlier, Jamie. You'd mentioned that you spoke to your parents. It's not everyone who has that room.
Yeah.
You know, I know that we're all asking for wisdom here, but sometimes you need to talk to someone. You talk to someone, and the person hears you. You know, it's funny that I could literally talk to you, Darian, and say, Darian, this is what I'm going through. And you could listen to me, understanding that I just needed an avenue to release. You could also decide to respond to me and say, oh, my husband has done this and this and this. I'm so upset. And you come back and say, oh, he's such a demonic man. Oh, why would you have that kind of husband? He's crazy. He's mad, you know. And then you encourage me to stay apart and continue to stay apart emotionally. There's some people that have the wisdom to say, even though I am downloading all of these things to you, all that is just happening is that I need a place to release. If you feel that you need to interject, you will call the two of them together, because when you hear the man's side of the story, most of the time, all you're hearing is just one side. There is always another side.
Yeah.
And when you come to a place where you can hear both together, then you get an understanding of what is going on and you can help them move forward. It's not everyone who has someone they can talk to that has that understanding to even help to start with. That's one of the things that we need to pray for when this kind of actually happens to us.
Thank you so much
And
for
that's
that.
why
And the prayer aspect of saying that he mentioned, that you did. Sometimes we don't have those people around us, but when we lean on the help of God, he directs our path or he settles the situation. And in your case, he actually told you, heard clearly, why are you doing this to this woman? Wow. I'm so blessed with that. Tosi.
yes, thank you so much. And that's why we also recommend, and I'm asking now for the sake of our audience, can they reach out to you guys as counselors, as a safe space where they can actually say some of these things? Is it okay if people reach out to you?
Yes, you can reach out to us. You have our contacts.
So,
You have anyone who's interested, they can always reach out and we'll schedule some time.
so
Yeah.
we'll put your email below this video so that whoever wants to reach out to you can then reach out. We'll put our email as well. When they get in touch with us, we can always get in touch with you. But Eddie, you also made a very vital point that you heard God, right? Which means that you guys have the same father, because if Satan is your father-in-law, I'm wondering where the communication is going to happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that speaks to if the foundation is faulty and two work together except they agree. So it's sort of, we're saying to those who are not yet married, try to make sure you share the same father-in-law, that sort of thing. So you know who to pray to.
Definitely.
Yeah, so well, the time is gone already. Where did all the time go? We're just beginning. I'll just ask this one question as we wrap up, because there's also another dynamic situation. It's not everybody who has their spouse living with them in another country. So we've talked about spouses who moved from one country to another country. How about spouses who still have one other person in the other country and still has his own way of thinking, he still has his own culture, and the other spouse is in another country dealing with another kind of culture, another kind of pressure, another kind of trouble? How do you have anything for those kind of spouses on how to maintain the spark in their relationship?
What I'll say is that the spouse who is home, wherever the home is, Nigeria or wherever, that is more on a stable pedestal, has to be able to ensure that they are available emotional support for the one who's having to relocate. And this emotional availability is not just for a month, it's not for 2 months. It's possible that for the next 3 years, you become some sort of support structure. You might support maybe financially. Sometimes the finances doesn't make sense, especially Nigeria. I don't know how much you want to spend cent that would really make sense, right? When you convert it to dollars. But sometimes the person just needs an outlet. And especially for women, for us, well, I would say it's easy, but the men don't seem to get it. That sometimes you need someone to talk to. Sometimes we don't need you to troubleshoot because you really can't help someone who is in a different country, right? So I just need to be able to come and vent a little bit that my boss did this to me and all of that. And all you have to do is listen. You don't have to tell me how to treat my boss and stuff. I have an idea how to do that on my own. However, my boss chooses to be who he chooses to be, right? So you have to now wear the hat of the one who is supporting emotionally. Talk to your kids. Try to retain the relationship with your kids. Try to ensure that you're, in a place where you can still counsel your kids, even though you're not there, or vice versa. Connect with your spouse, be emotional support, spark up the point where the two of you, maybe before you got married, were just partners. Switch to that point where you could literally sit down and now start, talking to one another. That might help keep the relationship going stronger. I know that there's been mention about, okay, so what happens to sex? Is gone, is there, I'm here. What happens to that point? I've not had to deal with that, but I'll say that you did something before you got married, right? That you were not all over the place. So whatever it is that you had the ability to do before you got married, turn it on now. And if you don't have the ability to turn it on, ask God for help. That's my two coins.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a difficult place to be. It's a difficult place to be because one thing about when two people are married, it's more like, and it's the wisdom of God. It said, for this cause. What is that cause? What's that mystery behind for this cause? Shall a man leave his father and mother and cleave? There is a mystery that God wanted us to catch. And sometimes that mystery, people don't get it. People don't get it because sometimes they are still tied to whose apron that matters, right? Or people would not even let that apron. It's like giving somebody a gift and then holding the rope and say, maybe one day I can pull the rope and still access the gift, right? It's important for parents to understand that when people find love, and it's a love that it's in a trusted, you've done the right thing, the parents are connected, marriage is done, let the children be. It's a team sport. They need to play together and get things moving. Don't get to be meddling and all that. Get a job. Let them be, right? Now, when it comes to the time that kind of separation happens, people need to plan. Marriage does not succeed because you're wishing it to succeed. There's an intentionality in making marriage work. When two people separate, you must come to table and say, how do we ensure there's no gap? Because when two people separate, there will be gap. It's not that there will be a gap. There's already a gap. And if that gap, like a crack, is not well taken care of, things will happen. For example, time zones differ. You have what is called SAD, which is an acronym for when the weather is changing, people react to it as well. I can't remember what it means. I think it's something affective disorder, whereby people react to the fact that it's too cold and then their mood will change. And then when it's summer or spring, they get back as well. I will recommend this. Couples need to try to visit each other. Sometimes it might be you have a student that has come here with the kids and the husband can't get a visa to visit. If that is the case, you need to find a place where you guys can meet. It might be somewhere that you guys can cross over and meet easily. It's possible. Because of that intentionality, you find it out. If the wife has to visit and she has people to leave the kids with that are safe for a week and has to visit, you have to do that. The other thing is that you have to find a way that you're always talking. Because by the time the husband wants to go to sleep and is talking to the wife, she might be at work. You need to understand that balance of timing. And maybe if weekends and all that. And find a way to share information. You can even decide to even put camera in the house. Sometimes it might be that the guy is in the office and is watching the camera where the kids are playing and all that. It gives you that joy that I'm connected. It's as if I'm in that room. That little things that you are doing can bring a lot of joy to the family. The other thing is that we've seen a couple that we canceled both of them, and my wife and the lady had to go onto fasting, praying that the man should make a decision to relocate. And until he relocated, that marriage will have gone south. So you have to understand that sometimes you get to the point whereby you are interceding for a marriage, and God will tell you clearly what you need to do in that marriage to help them save that marriage. So they had to agree, and the guy resigned on a flight. It was when he got to Canada. Okay, so let me give you the gist a little so that I won't go into all the details, confidential. The guy had a fight with his boss, that the boss was trying to keep him, you are the best staff that I have. And the guy just bought it in the office, picked his bag without going home, and boarded on the plane. He was in the plane, he resigned. And until he got to Canada, and he said, I mean, I don't reach Canada. That kind of thing. But it was prayer that compelled him to take those kind of decisions. He wasn't going to come.
And he's never gone back since.
And he has never gone back since. He wasn't going to come. He got here and he said, oh, I'm here. And since he got here, God opened doors for him. He wished he had come here a much longer, So there's no one size fits all. Once you have the intentionality and looking at all the things that make sure that that distance is sort of closed in, and then you people are also working on a plan, long-term plan, short-term plan, mid-term plan, to be able to come together. And if that plan is not going to happen like that, try as much as possible to see whether you can visit each other as well. So that's my 2 cents about that. Thank you.
Amazing. So to wrap up and to recap all that you guys have said in a few words, is that number one, you have to be very intentional. And with whatever you decide you want to do, probably even have the conversation before leaving your home country to your host country. And if that didn't happen right now, the best time was yesterday, but the next best time is today. Have that conversation.
Yeah.
Secondly, you said that you must be ready to adapt and switch roles. Whatever life throws at you, make the most of it. No labels here. It's not a man's job. It's not a woman's job. It's our job. Then, thirdly, underline everything you've said is spirituality. Very important. You must know how to pray. You must know how to talk to God. And it's better that your spouse is connected to that Wi-Fi so that they can receive signals when things are going wrong, and things are going great too. Yeah, so you have to be connected. Spirituality, God cannot be ruled out of a successful relationship. That's what I'm hearing you guys say. And then you're also saying that it's important to have a community, but you must discern what kind of community you want to have. Is it the one that is supportive or the one that is destructive? Even though they mean well, sometimes they don't even mean evil. It's just that they're giving you the best that they have, which is not even good enough for you, right? So you must know what kind of community, whether it's your parent, counselors, friends, whatever, that's going to work for you. And with that said, I hope I kind of captured all that you guys have said to us today.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Folu and Eddy. It's been a great time. I look forward to connecting with you again. I'm sure we'll have other questions, and I have a feeling that we might be having a second part of this recording. But let's see what our viewers and audience have to say first. Based on their questions and comments, we'll know if you're coming back. But thank you so much. It's been worth our
Thank
time.
you.
I've learned a lot. I've picked up so many things. I'm going back to drawing board to, make my marriage better as well. And thank you for answering all our questions today.
Thank you,
Thank you for
Daring.
having
Thank
us.
you, Tosin.
Thank you, Daring.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tosin. It's a
Thank
pleasure.
you so much. We really enjoy having you. Thank you so much. And we hope today's conversation has brought new perspectives, to our viewers, today. And of course, encouragement for all couples adjusting to life after relocation. So wherever life has found you, or whatever you found yourself in life, remember all the points that have been shared today. You're not alone. Reach out for help, and we'll see you again next time. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye for now. Bye.
Yeah, bye.